Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Brian Fox Let's Talk program. We've been away for a little bit. I'm not going to say we got suspended by Facebook, but looks like we got suspended by Facebook for a month. So now we're back. All right. So tonight we're going to talk about classic cars, and we have a guest, Lance Dammeyer. I used to work with him in the military, F-16 crew chief, and a great guy. He lives down in Tennessee. And he's going to talk about his Barracuda, 70 Barracuda. That's a cool car. So anyway, while you're watching this, don't forget to like, subscribe, and what's the other thing, Carolyn? I don't have my key card in front of me, but
So sorry.
you got to be on the job. Don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe. Facebook and YouTube channel. All you got to do is like the Brownie Fox Let's Talk channel. So I'm going to bring on Lance here. And we're going to learn a lot about what he's doing with this beautiful machine he has. Lance.
Hey, good evening.
Good evening. How are you?
I'm good.
It's good to have you on.
Come again?
It's good to have you on here. And we want to know about your project because we love classic cars. You know, most people do. And we'd like for you to, I can bring your car on screen real quick. I can share with everybody.
Sure.
The very first photo you have of it.
Are you sure you're on a channel?
Yeah.
It's not online.
Oh yeah, that's
So this is your.
Wow.
You know, I see promise in there. That's what I see.
Right. That's yeah, and that's 10 years later right there. So if you go through there, Kevin, you can find a picture of an orange car in a field, in a cornfield in Tennessee, and that would be right there. That was my car in high school.
No way.
Yes, that is the car that I raged around Mercer County, down around Salina, St. Mary's, New Bremen. That's a 1970 383 Cuda with a 4-speed pistol, 335 horsepower, thermoquad, death machine. My mother wondered for many years how I was able to survive, and I look back on that too and wonder how I did. I bought that car for $400 in 1987.
Oh man.
And I actually have the original registration in my Air Force bag here in the office for when I registered that as a young man in 1987. I kept that car when I bought it, the floorboards, so that was in 87. It's a 1970 Cuda. The floorboards were already rusted all the way through. The E-body Challengers and Cudas had a lot of issues with rust. They were a really cool looking car, but they weren't really well built. So my father wouldn't let me drive it until I replaced the floorboards in it. And so machine shop, and you couldn't buy those things back then. You couldn't go to a catalog and say, I want floorboards or fenders or anything. You could go to the junkyard. And that's a unique thing, Kevin, because there was a junkyard in Salina where they had stacks of those, stacks of Challengers, stacks of
Really?
Cudas, stacks of Mach 1s, stacks of Mustangs, stacks of Torinos. Just, the Cuda rose down there. And I would go to the junkyard. The guy that owned it, his name was Moon, M-O-O-N, and he was this big 6'7" guy with a beard. And he said, "What do you want?" And I said, "I got $50. Take whatever you can carry." And I pulled tons of parts off of that car in 1987 and 1988 out of the yard, and I had them in our barn where I grew up in New Bremen. And I drove that car around, and on prom night, 1988, I was racing a Buick Grand National.
Really?
Of course, I didn't admit that I raced for many, many years, but my father knew, based on what I'm about to tell you right away. I was racing a Buick Grand National that earlier in the year had toasted me. And we met again, not planned. We didn't have Facebook or any smack talk online. We just happened to run into each other on a road again. And we had the second race, and
Wow.
I won the race, and I had a turn coming up, so I went to downshift from 4 to 3 to prepare and I missed, and I went to 1, and I let it out, and I threw one of my mains on the engine, and the car just screamed, the motor just screamed clearly something was wrong, and I put it in the garage. You know, maybe if it cools off, it'll be fine. Nobody will know.
Didn't work out, did it?
Yeah. And then, of course, you know, as a kid, you're like, well, maybe if I talk about it, you know, I address it and talk about it, that'll make it better. So my dad came home like, I don't know what happened to my car. It just started making this screaming sound. And he started it, and he knew right away what it was. So
Yeah.
I know I didn't have a car anymore in high school. And when I was stationed in Germany in the 80s, in the late 80s, you were allowed to have a car overseas. It was considered a long tour. So I did the paperwork to have that car. I thought it would be a great idea to have that on the Autobahn. And I got it approved, and I flew home to get it. And I had a mechanic. God was looking out for me. We had a mechanical issue, and I couldn't take it back. I couldn't take it to Bayonne, New Jersey, to ship to Germany. And so I continued my Air Force career. In 1992, I'd moved on to another great Trans Am. I was driving a Trans Am in California where I was stationed, and I had some issues, and I didn't have the money to pay for it, and called home, asked for help, and Dad said, well, tough luck. There's a CUDA out here in the garage that you can sell. And we put it in the proverbial penny saver. That was July of 1992. I listed it for $8,500 in the penny saver. It sold the day it published. Some guy came and took it, and no wonder. It is a number matching original CUDA. And the unique thing is, with all of the registrars for those cars, I've never found the car again. I have a friend who worked in Ohio in the could get into the computer system, you know, and look for the VIN number and things. It's never reappeared, and it's never appeared on any of the other lists either, which is a shame if it ever was restored. So fast forward 20 some years, 92, 02, I guess it wasn't that long. My gosh, I was married 8 years later. Time flies. My wife knew that was something I really wanted to pursue, and we started looking for a CUDA. And we looked for about 15 years. Well, no, 10,
Really?
Yeah, a long time, a decade. And we would go and look at cars. I wanted a 1970, it had to be a 70. And cars really got crazy in the late 90s and 2000s, those muscle cars did. You know, that's when it's really before we had Mecum and stuff like that, but it just got really out of control, the value of those muscle cars. And we would go answer an ad for $17,000, and it would literally be a burned up car. Well, I mean, half of it was burned. It's like, why did you tell me? You could have told me that, but you know, somebody would buy it for that. So I wanted a 1970, and I wanted, for some reason in my head, I wanted a Hemi orange one like I had. I probably could have settled for less.
Right.
So whatever the pictures started, I guess in 2007, we found it. You can probably pull that picture up. It's on a trailer. That's Scott Kuzma looking for me. I had everybody looking for me. I had Kurt Buchwald looking for me, guys from the unit. Who can find me a CUDA? And I found one from North Carolina. It was in a barn. It was covered up. And I thought that was a good thing. It had been covered with a tarp. And that picture, if you can bring it up, it's on a trailer. It's kind of in the back. That's when I brought it in, and I started spending some money on it. And the further we went into the car, that first picture that you showed, you said that's got some promise. We didn't have good digital cameras back then, so any flash made rust look absolutely horrible. And but it was worse than horrible. So the deeper that I went into that car, I have a man named Jim Hodges here in Nashville that was my mentor, and he's like, if you're going to do this, I'll mentor you on this, but I'm not going to let you take any shortcuts, cut any corners. And so we started to disassemble the car, and it's an amazing car, Kevin. That's more of the story, a number matching 318 Grand Coupe. That was the premium 1970 Barracuda that you could buy. However, the person that bought my car elected to only get a 318. Fuel prices were on their way up. They might have been thinking about that. They could have upgraded to a Hemi or a 440 or something along those lines for just a few $100s, but they elected to go with the 318 and the 904 standard 3-speed manual transmission. So we started to disassemble the car, and the further we got into it, the more serious rust we found. And I took it apart as far as we could get, and then I went and had it media blasted. And when it came back from the media blasting, it basically was like a piece of paper that someone had just shot through. The car was gone. And yeah, the entire car is new metal. The inner frame and everything is new except the right front frame rail. The fenders are the original fenders off the car. I found a man that cut out all the rot and put in new metal. The doors on that car in the pictures are from a car I found in New Orleans, in Lake Pontchartrain. I went down and got. The hood I got from South Bend, Indiana. That
Really?
picture there is how it's, yeah, that picture is a couple months ago. The previous picture is how it's set for about 7 years.
Really?
So yeah, that picture right there was it's up. I was putting the front end under it in that picture. But that's when the body is completely done. The rear deck panel there. It's ironic. I bought that at a show in Nashville for $150 as a car show. Whenever that rack shows up online, I have people messaging me offering $2,000 and $3,000 for that rack.
Really?
Evidently, it's super rare for a roof. So when I talk about the option list on this car, it was completely optioned. It came with the rack, as power steering, power windows. It had this green tint that they offered as an option, air conditioning. It had overhead console, Kevin, that told you if your fuel was low or your doors were open. Yep.
So you got a HUD on it, kind of, almost.
Yeah. It has. I probably should have sent you that, the tag that prints out all the different options about it. But it had every option you could have except the Rally Pack interior, which I'll change. So
yeah, you're showing this in a garage. This is somebody's working on it. It's garage.
Yeah. So
yeah.
In the last few months, I've started to put money back into it. These cars, when they were built on the assembly line, unlike today's cars where you just put the part on and screw it together, these cars were actually what they called trimmed. And they went to a trim tab. They went to a trim pad as they were coming down the assembly line.
Yeah.
So the fenders and the doors, much like an airplane, have pitch, roll, and yaw. They can adjust up, down, left, and right, or in or out. And so they had specialists with special tools as it came down the line. And that's what that picture is right there. He actually has that up, and he is doing what's called the trim on that car. So he's setting the gap so that it's perfectly at where the door meets the rear quarter, where it meets the front. And they actually had these tabs and shims that they put in the car to bring it all about. He discovered. Yep. He discovered when he was doing that that some of the inner framing, when the man that I had paid before had made some mistakes, and a quarter of an inch turns into a much bigger difference when you're looking at trim. So he's pretty amazing. He has a YouTube channel called Iconic Metalworks, and the week that he worked on this a couple weeks ago, he broadcast it live. It was pretty popular among the Mopar people. In that picture you're looking at right there, that's exposed metal. Those aren't dents or filler or anything like that. You're actually seeing exposed metal where he worked. It's actually, I don't have any details, but if you got close to that, that's actually polished metal. This guy's a magician as to what he's done. So you can see at the front there where you can actually see some of the metal work on the front right there. He put in those original doors, the bottoms were shot, so we put in completely new lowers.
Yeah. Okay.
And that's not filler broken away. That's where he's working on metal. So you can see the gap is perfect now all the way around. These videos, he does it really good. Oh my gosh, I know I sent you hundreds of photos, but it's hard to see unless you are standing right next to it. But when I put it all back together, I was all proud of myself for getting the doors on and the new hinges and everything. And then there was the difference between that front fender and the door was a half an inch, which is the Grand Canyon when you're looking at it. And he brought it together, something I could have not figured out on my own.
Hey, by the way, that's a beautiful shape right there. It's a work of art right there, that car.
Then it was a very pretty shape. And I will drop that car about 2 inches. So if you can imagine those wheels tucking up underneath in there. Most people know, back when I was in high school, I put air shocks underneath it and got the back up in the air and put really wide tires, as that first picture showed. But I really like it. Mopars were unique, and you could set the ride height. They did it that reason because they had different motors. A 426 Hemi or a 440 big block weighed 900 pounds more than a 318 or a slant six. So they have what are called torsion bars. The suspension in the front of an e-body is very unique. They're long metal bars that twist, and that sets the ride height. And it depends on the type of steel that you use, depends the ride height. So a different block motor would have had a different tension steel bar. And then you could also ratchet them up and down slightly, a half inch or a 3/4 inch. So until I get the motor in, I'm not going to know how to set my height.
So tell me more about your motor. What do you have? Is that like it says a 383?
No. So the big block money, there's a great picture of the alignment now. As you look down the side, it's just perfectly trimmed. And there's the metal I was talking about. He retooled that entire front fender. It's just crazy what this guy can do. The big block cars, to find a number matching big block car is just add another comma. It's just insane. So I settled for a 318 number matching. I was very excited about that. And a guy named Mark here in Nashville, I put all this money into the body about 10 years ago. And I didn't have, working on the motor was not important to me. And my friend Mark had the motor. And when I started putting money back in this a few years ago, I called Mark, and Mark's number was disconnected. And I made a few more calls and found out that Mark had moved to Utah, Hill Air Force Base. So got his number and called him, and he informed me that he had called me and told me that, left a message that he had my block, and I never called him back. So when he closed the shop, he just left it there. And so you're right. So I no longer have a number matching car. And I'm in a small town. Franklin, we have about probably 50,000 residents. So the machine shop that was in is a machine shop. I haven't gone back over there, but in the meantime, I bought a satellite, a 318, a small block out of a 72 satellite.
Yeah.
And I had Shacklet Machine in Nashville at our Speedway build me. They took that 318, we bored it to 4 inches, and we put a 360 scat crank in it.
Oh yeah.
And I sent you some of those pictures. It's pretty interesting what they did. They milled the pistons so that the the crankshaft, when it came back around, would not hit the pistons. It was pretty fantastic.
In here, but
it's okay. They built a really cool motor for it. So they blueprinted and balanced it, which I didn't know what that was at the time. I said, we can blueprint and balance this for $500. And what does that mean? So basically every piece of the rotating assembly is weighed and made to weigh exactly the same thing. And then you don't get any vibrations. Or, a modern car uses electronics to, I believe it's called retardation or advancement. If the motor is a not smooth running motor, the computer can mess with the firing, the retardation or the advancement of the cylinders to make it smooth itself out, even if it's not an asymmetrical engine.
Yeah.
Our old cars don't have that. They have, camshaft to set that. So for $500, as much as I have in this, I'm like, I'll do it. And it's just a cool story to tell people that it's blueprinted and balanced. So when I start it later this year, I'll report back and tell you if it really matters.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, that's a lot of work. It's a lot of stuff to think about. Just like my car doesn't have any, it has a few modern things. It's unibody construction, but it is what it is. That's the beauty of, an ancient car is, you live back the way they lived, and that's just you got to deal with that. So
Yeah.
I don't have air conditioning in my car. My car was bottom of the line of that Mercedes.
Right.
So I have a picture of it here. And wait a minute, I think I have something you're asking about. I do have another question for you though.
Sure.
So this is your, let's see, share here. So this is your.
Yeah, that's the new motor. Yep.
That looks massive.
Well, it's a small block, so it's got massive horsepower. So
look at that. That's to me, it looks massive, compared to what's in my car. So
yeah, it's pretty tiny. It'll fit in that engine compartment pretty tiny.
So let me ask you a question. This right here, how does this help you with your car? The job you did as a crew chief and the mechanical, you guys did a lot of mechanical work with, bigger parts and everything.
Yes.
So how did that translate?
It taught me how to do things right and never, don't ever skip a step, knowing what the consequences are. The consequences of skipping a step at that picture was someone's life, or people on the ground's life, or an aircraft loss. But when you start to advance in life and you start to invest your time and money into something like I've done into this car, I'm glad I had the discipline. I didn't have the discipline when I joined the Air Force in 1988. That's why I joined the Air Force, because I knew that I couldn't go into the rest of the world. And I used the word governor for many reasons. When I say governor, to me, that's a device on a car or a bus that keeps it from over revving or over speeding. And I knew as a 17-year-old that if I was released to the world, that there would not be good results. And so I joined the Air Force knowing that I would be molded into a man and would learn life skills. And many of those, I did something else before I did aircraft for 20 years, but probably the patience, the embrace the suck, as we used to call it. A jet would break and there's really nothing we could do about it but fix it. And with my cars, I think, as I told you, I dug into that particular car, and the deeper we went, the more was broken. And it was like, okay, I've got to embrace this. It's going to be better when it's done. I think I got a lot of that from working on jets. And
there's that logistical side of it where now you understand where things came from and how they got them when you're trying to do it yourself, and procedures, and you're craving the manual in the book. So
and I do have the book. I'm so glad you brought that up, because I have the TO. I went out and I found the original shop manuals from Chrysler and Plymouth, and they're in my garage in a 3-ring binder, and it is to the letter on how you work on those things, to the letter how you adjust a window. And when I look at TOs on an F-16, they were, I don't remember what they're written to, an 8th grade level or something like that. And that's absolutely fine for me, because I need it to see it on an 8th grade level. But, nowadays you can't get a book like that. That doesn't exist. Everything's pick and play or plug and play. Take out the motor, put in another one. But Chrysler or Plymouth meant for, they didn't send people off to be an ASE mechanic. They came into the dealership, and that was the Bible. This was the book. This is how you do it step by step, much like a TO.
Right.
I have those. It's been, they come to my house and they're like, what is that? I'm like, well, that's the TO. What's the TO?
Yeah.
Manual.
Right.
It's manual and the wiring diagrams and stuff. I couldn't have done. I'm able to not have to pay people to do, look at that. I'm able to not have to pay people because I can read and understand schematics and how to troubleshoot that we learned in the military.
You know what mechanical drawings, what they look like, and following the steps. Like this car here, this is my Mercedes. There are no current manuals available for under $1,000, but everything's online. So I couldn't shift to third and fourth because of maybe, I don't know, less than an eighth of an inch adjustment on the rod, on the steering rod.
Yeah.
But it's like trial and error, you just keep working at it. But I mean, you have to join some kind of group like I did, I do for this car. There's a lot of answers there, a lot of old guys who have like 3 or 4 of them. I don't know how they can afford that, but you find out things, doing a lot of research, going through a lot of books, trial and error, rigging things on your own, because that's kind of stuff we're used to.
Mm-hmm.
You got to rig it right and make sure it does what it's supposed to do.
Yeah.
And part of the magic.
Yep. Yeah, it wouldn't be fun. I wouldn't even do this if I couldn't get my hands dirty and the frustration and trying having a problem and learning how to resolve it. And putting it back together was a lot like that. It's easy to take something apart, but when I rebuilt the front end on the way that all goes together, those are to get out the exploded drawings. I didn't work enough on those to know where things go. And I mentioned Kuzma quite a bit. I called Scott. Scott and I are friends still, and I call him out in Utah, and we talk about it. Like, try this. So we do that. I tried to get Scott on tonight. He is the king of classic cars from what he does with cars. He'd be a great show to have somebody who does demolition derbies. Yeah. Scott is an awesome guy. He's a great guy to work with and everything. And I want to have him on sometime soon so we can talk about this. I bet he'd love to.
Oh yeah. He said he's going to try to get on tonight, but I haven't seen him yet. So where are you, Scott? But no, Scott's a terrific guy, and it's amazing the stuff that he puts together. I used to say on his Facebook page, "Don't do it, don't destroy it, restore it, restore it." So when I got my car, he did the same thing. Restore it. So good guy. We have a lot of good friends with skills. So I got sheet metal mechanic friends, and I have machinists that I used to work with, and it's good to have. It's harder for you down in Tennessee, but it's good to have people with skills, with those kind of skills. Yeah, I haven't used them yet, but it's just something that you're going to need eventually, and how good they are. That's the thing. I know how good these guys are. All these guys are skilled. This so makes a big difference. And I say, hey, I need help with this or that, and I help them with electrical stuff or whatever. So call E&E. I'm right here.
Right. I drove to Southern Indiana yesterday to purchase some parts for one of my other hobbies. And we were talking about the Air Force and how things changed over the years. But I was talking about the person I was with didn't realize that when we deployed, we took everyone with us. And if we had machine shops, and we had people literally that in the olden days that literally would make, if we needed a part, we would make it. And I said, imagine the most awesome shop you've ever seen, machine shop throughout Northwestern Ohio. And, you envision a machine shop, not the guard machine shop. You'd go in, there'd be stuff everywhere and shavings and just stuff piled all over. And it's a unique Americana story. I said, imagine an operating room of going into an operating room of machinists. I said, that's how I remember walking into the machine shop. I go to see Bratton or someone like that. And it's just like, everything is totally clean at the end of the day and cleaned up. And but that stuff got used and people knew how to make things. I said olden days because near the end, it seemed like we purchased a lot more things or didn't make as many things.
Yeah, I'm amazed. Some things I never thought they could fix. They fixed it. And, something I don't understand. Sheet metal is like magic to me.
Yeah. Yep.
So those machine people, amazing people. And the guys that you had there, they had like 30 plus years or whatever, doing the same thing, working on the same aircraft. And they're just skilled, highly skilled at what they did. The painters, everybody. The entire deployment had talent like you would never believe. And because they got the job done and they were dedicated to it. It's a little different in the airline world and the civilian world. I work for an airline. It's just a different level of dedication. Probably because that's you live with people, the same people, you deploy with them. You're all best friends, and you're all working together professionally. So there's a bond there, and that's just how that works. And the dedication and precision was more important. People looked at when I was an A7 mechanic when I started out. My boss would come after me with a torque wrench. So, and he'd say, "Hey, did you check this? Did you check that?" And he would check it in the middle of my work before I got the work done. So I learned early on do things the right way. Just like you, when I got in, I didn't have the ability, as a person out of high school to do this kind of stuff 100%, 110%. But that taught me, this is serious business. And you realize I'm working on an airplane. I'm working on a $30 million aircraft, $40 million, whatever it is. And at the same time, I have to go clean the bathrooms when I'm done here.
Right. And when you look back, we weren't just working on it, as a crew chief, my name was on it. And by later in my career, my name was on the red X line. That's a lot of tremendous. The Guard was a little bit different for me to work up through that. But in the active duty Air Force, you've got a 22-year-old with 7-level orders who are with red X orders and stuff, that's a lot of responsibility. And you would think, wow, a young kid can handle that. Yeah, they can. We're capable of a lot as humans. That always kind of puts a lump in my throat and kind of humbles me that what I was entrusted with. And I took it very seriously. But it's hard to look back at that sometimes and realize what I was entrusted with and that I did a good job at it.
Yes, you did.
Everybody did.
Yeah, I agree. And everybody worked as a team. And I've been on other shows and I said, it's the Guard, the Air Force, the Marines, the Navy, the reserves, everybody works together when you go on a deployment. It's all one force. And people don't realize that. Everybody has their part, everybody does their share, and everybody works to the same goal, which is amazing. There's no competition for the mission. I didn't mean to rhyme like that, but
yeah, but
for the mission.
That's funny. There's no competition. The smart talk and the boistering stuff is more like the hometown bar talk. That's the when we're not doing anything. I don't think the general public knows that. There seems to be some divisive talk about that. What does the Guard do, or they're just hometowners, or that there's not a whole lot of education. I learned later on at the end of my career how large of a percentage of deployment actions that the Guard took on, and I was flabbergasted at the end when I saw how much we were responsible for, and with pride. And you and I were part of one of the top units in the world with the 180th Fighter Wing, and the places we deployed to. We know firsthand because we were there, boots on the ground, doing it. But I don't think the general public knows and understands. And I wish there was more of a push, and maybe I should do something as in my own community to help. Whenever someone mentions the military, I'm like, hey, I'll talk to your son or daughter. I'll tell them my story. It's not for everyone, but Kevin, you will get a kick out of this. And I don't know what you remember about me exactly, but I have every piece of paper that I've ever gotten in the military from the day I signed up in the delayed enlistment program in Saline, Ohio in 1987 to the day I separated. I have every pay stub, the little blue carbon pay stub we used to get. I've got every letter of reprimand. I got a few of those along the way for being silly. I've got every award, every order, and it's all in a binder. And I hope my kids they don't care now, but maybe someday they'll want to go back through that. But every once in a while I'll get that out and I'll read a memory. I don't know why I did that, but I did. And it's pretty fun
to go over again and see what you did. I have some of those things too. I don't have all of them. I have some of them, like all the promotions for the base papers and everything.
Yeah. If anyone else is watching this, or you watch it later, just to let you know, in 1988, as an E1 airman, the pay per month was $618.
Mm-hmm.
And from that, $100 went to the GI Bill, a little bit to taxes, and a couple of those showed $191 to live on. and I lived like a king on that $191. No, we didn't. You know, it was different times at different costs.
Did you know when I joined the Guard, we didn't have many minorities at Rickenbacker, so they made the Ohio Guard magazine put me on the cover for recruiting. I was on a cover with an F-16 behind me. We didn't have F-16s back then. It was just like a cartoon kind of thing. It was my outline, an artist did the drawing.
Yeah.
So I was on the front. I still have that of that magazine, but they changed my name to Howard.
Howard White.
Sergeant Howard, and then I got on a lot of TV spots for minority recruitment. Went to different events. The 180th was really big on that. So I got a little. I don't know if you know this or not, but in 2013 we went to Africa. The 180th did,
Mm-hmm.
and we went to the Red Line for Syria. Sequestration prevented active duty. This goes along with what you said earlier. Prevented active duty from flying any missions anywhere in the world at that time. Only the Guard did was doing the entire Air Force around the world. So that's how important the Guard is, because we were funded differently. So if we didn't have that, we'd be in deep trouble. We were over there, Colorado was over, and we went over the Middle East, and we were the only ones flying anything unless they got activated. So we were very key. So the Guard is every bit as needful as active duty. It's just got a special local hometown feel to it, and each other. Nobody PCSs or whatever. You're the family that stays together. You have your crazy Uncle Joes and all that, but it's all good stuff.
Yeah, we did.
Just like you said, pride. There's a lot of pride. You clean. You do anything. You paint fences. You clean the bathroom. And the bad thing about that is, I remember when I was a young kid, I had to clean the chief's office, me in Arnsburg, every Friday. So when you go clean something, everybody else has done it like years and years. You have to do it. The expectations are so high when you're doing janitorial work in the military. People don't realize this. Everybody before you got to be better than they were. So it's like when you always left the place, you left it better than when you got there. That's just how it is. So that's the same thing with your vehicle, your car. You want to make that thing shine. There's pride in your aircraft. You have your own plane with your name on it. You're going to make that thing look awesome. And then you're going to put that into your car as well, and all your work you do, because that's your personal work. That's your safety wire, whatever you're doing. That's your adjustments in there. You know everything about what happened in there. So, and I believe that, like, as a crew chief, you guys did a little bit of everything. And then you called the specialists. You guys are the general practitioners, and we were the specialists.
Right.
That's okay. So, hey, get an electric shop out here. They need to look at this, avionics, and they were all good. And you couldn't beat it. Can't beat that team.
I can't. I mean, to be a traditional guardsman and realize I spent 20 years there just floors me.
So what did you do before you were at the 180th?
I went into the Air Force Open Electronics, and I was pretty tough decision between the Navy and the Air Force. I knew I wanted to do electronics. I'd done very well with that in high school and some state competitions. My dad's an electrical engineer. But I didn't know what I was going to do. It was open, so I got to my first 2 weeks of basic training that everyone, I didn't know what I was going to do. Most people knew what they were going to do and where they were going to go. And back in those days, we had what was called Orders Day, and they lined us up underneath in the hell of heat that was a Texas summer. They lined us up underneath one of the dorms, and they called out orders, and they just went around and, White, you're going to, I don't know who you wanted to make mad, but you're going to Minot, North Dakota.
Yeah.
So you must have an aunt who likes you. You're going to Hawaii. I mean, they literally were just yelling out orders. And then they got to Dammeyer, and they're like, you must have really made somebody mad because you're staying here in Texas. And I made it into this ridiculous career field called Electronic Cryptographic Warfare technician depot level.
Wow.
So I worked on, you'll remember these. I worked depot level on KG 84s and 85s, 53s, 52s. I spent a year in tech school in a room in a school with 2 layers of concertina wire, no windows.
Right.
Being raised in New Bremen, Ohio, I never got in any trouble and somehow ended up with the top secret SCI.
Yeah.
It was fun to a degree, but I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to be working on radios my whole life. I'm going to work on this crypto. And the people in charge knew what was up, and I was assigned once I graduated. And I'll go ahead and share this story with people too. The washout rate was 94% in the school.
Yeah.
And it was very high. I mean, think about the schools you went through in the Air Force. It's hard for the outside world to understand that what we would learn in a 6-week class would probably be the equivalent of a year of technical school or something like that. That's all we did. That's all we learned. And I washed back twice, and supposedly there was no washing back, and you would be LE, law enforcement. That scared me to death. And I was a good negotiator, and I was able to be allowed to remain in the program, and I did graduate. And in those days, we had what was called a dream sheet that you filled out where you wanted to go worldwide. And I wanted to go to Germany. I was raised in a German community in Northwest Ohio. And my first orders were to an engineering and installation group in Wiesbaden, Germany. Germany was still east and west. The wall was still up. Russia was the enemy. And I spent 4 years, Kevin, traveling the world, out of Wiesbaden, Germany, and out of McClellan Air Force Base, Sacramento. We would go to fighter squadrons, fighter wings. I worked at NATO. We would go into an empty room and install secure voice communications. And the unit was massive. Part of the unit, would work with all the digging the holes. Another part of the unit would pour the foundations. And then we would come in, set the electrical grid, build install the racks. The equipment came in. You'll remember this. In those days, we had to hand terminate everything. Then the Amphenol connector came along. We were all excited. We didn't have to do everything by hand. And it was amazing the things I learned to build, and again, was entrusted with. And I did that for 4 years. But in 1991, President Clinton, or 92, they did a reduction in forces, and they did away with my entire career field.
Oh.
And that's the engineering group. And another thing, I did not really enjoy my tour in Germany because of some maturity issues with myself. And I was like, I don't think I really like the Air Force. And this was before cell phones and internet. And when you were deployed overseas, you were deployed overseas. It wasn't, you couldn't call home at night. It was $5 a minute. I remember that number. It was $5 a minute. Remember, I made after taxes $191 every 2 weeks. So you weren't calling home, or if you did, you wouldn't do anything else. And when I got back stateside, the Air Force was much different in the way I saw it. But I'd already made that decision to get out. So not only you had to decide at your 2-year, were you going to re-up? And I'm like, I don't think this is for me. But when I got stateside, I really liked it, and they stopped my career field. So I was able to talk my commander, Lieutenant Commander Burge. She gave me an option to go into wideband, and I just didn't want to work on radio. I did not want to be in a shop consistently. So I came to Toledo. I talked to Toledo, called. Craig Kyle is probably who I spoke to. Yes. I want to work on airplanes. And they said, I talked to Teresa Sadowski, and they didn't have any, but they said, if you come, a spot will open. So I came to Toledo and enrolled at the University of Toledo. And after 6 months, a position opened. And it was amazing. And I can name yourself, all the great people along the lines that I became the best of friends with for 20 years and beyond. Look upon that with great affection and admiration to be part of that unit. Very proud of Ohio to be from there and be able to participate.
Right. You see my retirement plaque. You have one of these too, I bet.
Yep. I don't have a fin flash. I'd love to get my hands on one, but they did do it.
Probably
Oh,
make that
when I retired, I had the commander's jet. So I finished the last 3 or 4 years
happen.
with that jet. That was pretty cool. When I did have my ceremony, they pulled it in, and to my family to be able to see my name on that and the fin flash. Back then, that was the only one that carried the 1/80th flash and the
Right.
stinger. That they made me a really nice box. And I had a career before, as we were just talking about. I had I did a lot in those 4 years, some pretty cool things. So I might have not have accomplished a lot of rank, and that bothered me to a degree. But when I finally looked at the rack and all the things that I'd done, I was very humbled to see it all in one place. It was really cool. And I got to admit, man, one of my greatest,
Yes.
truly is one of my highest honors in my life. I don't know if they do that anymore.
Yes, they do.
It was very important to me.
The minute man leaves his plow to go fight war with his gun. So that's what the Guard is all about. And I had explained that on a national program a couple weeks ago, because we were talking about the Guardsmen in DC, and people don't realize in the Army Guard, most of the people don't work at the guard station. They have regular jobs. So it's a big deal when you get deployed. Even in the Guard, like for people like you and other people who are guardsmen, it takes a lot to get 2 weeks, and sometimes that's all the employer allows is 2 weeks. And these guys have been there for weeks and weeks and weeks, so it's a huge deal. So the Army Guard they might have 3 people at their little armory there, and everybody else are guardsmen. So
Right.
everything is different. Most people, or a lot of people, are full time. So this is a unique animal, because you have to fly planes every week, every day. I mean, that's why we have full time people there. So
Right.
That makes it a little different than leaving a tank set or something. So plus you got to train the pilots.
Most of my career, with the exception of 3 years, the employer was very accepting, and their attitude changed on 9/11 drastically. That particular person, I left soon after, but I've been in banking and finance ever since then, and I've worked for myself. So it actually built my career, Kevin. You probably remember this on deployments with me. We would work the line, and then I would go to the MWR tent, and I would log in and work with my client stateside. I did play it up. I mean, like, what are you doing? Well, I'm deployed in Turkey, or I'm deployed in Kuwait, and I can still help you though. And then directing things, and that, some of these clients I've had for 20 years that started back then on those deployments, where, thank goodness I say that I was never into working out or any of that, but being able to go back and do my job at night after we worked on the line it was a two-way street. One of the unique things about the Guard is I've been in finance and sales my whole professional adult life, and it's a very hard job. It's a lot of stress, and it never ends. I work all the time. I'm at my office here on a Friday night still, whether I would have been talking to you or not, because I serve the people I work for. But I enjoyed the Guard so much because, and I literally did this. I was like, phone's off. And Jennifer, my wife, I turned the phone off when I got on the airplane or when I drove up, and it didn't turn back on until Monday morning. And it was a total escape. I was working with my hands, doing physical things that I would not have done at all during the week in finance. Gosh, I think of the ORIs or the OREs where we're just dying in a tent in the humidity of Toledo going, oh, I can't believe I do this.
Right.
It's my choice. But then when it's done, the sense of accomplishment is like, I can do that. I did that. We did that. And then we would get a rating, from the IG that you killed it. You did great. And then I brought back that pride and tried to instill that. And I have instilled it in what I do here. There's no doubt about it. The work ethic and that you're going to embrace the suck and push through it and accomplish the mission. I've applied that in everything I've done in my civilian life.
Yeah, I'm very proud of what you did, as a civilian. I think that's awesome. And everybody loved when Lance came to work, Lance came to drill. So Lance, you're one of the heroes, one of the guys everybody enjoyed having around. So that's you can't say that about everybody, right?
Right.
Everybody's like that. But you're a refreshing guy to have, yeah, I think it's been. When did you actually retire?
2012, August of 12, then my
Yeah,
retirement.
I was there. I remember because I think you had your uniform on and some little bit of facial hair, but that's all right.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah,
Well,
that's awesome.
I'll tell you a funny story if you got a second.
Sure.
For about 8 years, Chief Kelly, John Kelly, and I, we didn't even know, we were both crew chiefs, and we didn't even know that we lived in Tennessee together. And one day I was like, I gotta get out of here. I gotta catch my flight out of Cleveland. And he's like, where are you going? I'm like, I live in Nashville. He's like, I live in Nashville. And we've been working together a year on the flight line as crew chiefs. And then we became friends, and we commuted back and forth for 8 years and deployed together. And one time near the end of my, right before retirement, I was late at work, and I had to get to the airport, and I ran home. I was late, and I put my uniform. I was all booted up, and where John and I would park at the Nashville airport, it's a shuttle service, and it's kind of you would park, and they would take you in these limousines to the airport. It's just the service they offer. So you'd park your car, you jump in these limos, and they drive you to the airport, and you get out. So I'm in uniform, and a colonel or a general got in the vehicle with us to ride over.
Yeah.
And he was telling us that he was getting ready. He'd just come back from someplace in the Middle East, and he was looking at me, and I'm like, yeah, we were telling him we're getting ready to go to guard, and he got out at a different gate. He got out like Delta, and he closed the door, and John's like, what in the hell are you doing? I'm like, what are you talking about? He's like, you have a full beard and you are in uniform. And I had what I've got right here. He's like, change your clothes. He's like, I thought he was going to rip you apart. And I was like, turned beet red. And I told the limo driver, like, slow down. And I like stripped everything down in the limo and somehow got my other clothes back on. And
no, but you didn't have an idea some general's going to be there. That's you don't know.
I never would have gone. I just forgot.
You forgot. Okay.
Yeah, I forgot between the house. I was so late that I just put on everything. And I don't think I had any stubble for my retirement. I probably had this hair and had it all gelled back.
Yeah, you did. I remember now.
But
it doesn't matter. I mean, you came back and did the ceremony. That's the most important thing.
Well, I was very honored that they did that for Kim Christman put that all together, and she's a class act. Very special woman. Becky was very. It's funny you mentioned Djibouti and the Africa, the thing that y'all were doing there, and as I announced, I'm like, I'm going to retire. They're like, are you sure you don't want to wait another 6 months because we're going to be doing something really cool coming up that you might want to be part of? But I'm like, what is it? And they couldn't tell me, obviously. And it sounded like that was a great deployment to be very proud of. So
it was hot. It was the hottest place I've ever been. I lived in the Philippines and I'd been to Panama. It wasn't even close. It was so much hotter.
I went to Kuwait a couple of weeks before 9/11, and that was miserable. That's the hottest I've experienced.
The guys who went to Kuwait said Djibouti was ridiculously hotter. As a matter of fact, we went to Jordan during the middle of that deployment, and it was cool around Israel. It was like, oh, this is nice,
right?
It was so hot we couldn't run, you couldn't exercise during the day, and then everything was at night. 1 o'clock in the morning, I used to do my runs there.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was oppressive. Even the Africans were saying it's hot. Anyway, that was a good trip. That you would have liked that. It was awesome. We did 7 days in Spain before we went over there. I was on the ESTA team.
The old ESTA team. Advan and ESTA. Those are the good days. Those are people on that. Yeah,
right. Those are the people that go with the aircraft. If they break, we fix it. We fixed a couple of them before we got over there, and then the return ESTA team or the return team. So yeah, it was. You miss all those days, all those packages and everything, man.
I was very lucky to have been. I was almost always on the takeout ESTA. I got to go to the Azores.
Yes, I remember.
All Spain. We always were going to Spain. That was an honor, and it was. It's funny. I'm going to tell you about this. I had a phone call out of nowhere 2 years ago, and it was Steve Chafin, and Fingers, as we used to call him.
Yes.
And he called and he said, "Hey, I just looked you up. I just want to share a memory I have of you." And this is an important lesson because I've started doing this with people as I've grown a little bit older and trying to, give honor to God and for the skills and things that I've been blessed with, which is one of the reasons that probably they liked me coming around at the guard base was I always brought a lot of energy, and I was always like,
Yeah.
let's go. And we go on deployments. I would put together trips. I was the entertainment director on the cruise, so to speak. And Steve called and he said, "I want to tell you about an experience I had with you that I think probably has carried out through your whole life. And I want you to know how appreciative I was of that." And basically what it was it was the year that we went to the Azores, and we were pulling the jets out of Turkey, and there was some stress with the governments or something like that, and a very tight window to get the jets out. And as the jets came in, I was the computer geek, whatever, for the time. This could have been the 90s, and I prepared an Excel spreadsheet that I gave to whoever when they landed with the ESTA aircraft, C-17 or what it was, that I had prepared a working Excel spreadsheet of what was needed, as opposed to, obviously we'd have to go through all the forms and figure that out, but a simple spreadsheet of this tail number, what it needed.
Yeah.
And he was like, no one asked you to do that. And it just meant a world to him, that a guy that really busted my chops for most of my career only wanted me to be better, and 20 years later called and just wanted to share a memory with me, and it made me feel really special. So I've tried to do that with people that I work with too.
That's an awesome story. And Steve's a great guy. I saw him maybe 4 years ago in person. Yeah, he's a good guy. A lot of good people there, old timers and everything.
No, we're old timers now, buddy.
Yeah. Wait a minute. What are you talking about? Yeah, we are. We are old timers, but I'm privileged. And it's the thrill of being in a giant war package, going over Iraq and Turkey. That is something you have to remember, you'll never experience again. And all these countries together, working with the U.S., and the AWACS goes up, and then you have all these tankers, and you have all the fighters, and the stories that came with it, and it's just amazing, that kind of life. We used to live that life. That's
this evening, before I got on this call, before we went live with this, Kevin and I were talking, and there was a vacuum cleaner moving. I was telling you about that. The people that clean our offices are from Kurdistan, and they were evacuated by U.S. troops in the time that we were there, and they went to Guam. And I shared my story of, when we were there and doing things. And last week they brought me a dinner for a king. It was all traditional Kurdish foods and lamb and tava, and they brought it here to work for me and another one of my and I took it home. It was an entire meal. I took it home to my family. We have a huge Kurdish population here in Nashville that has a lot to do with that stuff, that when you and I were doing it, no one else in the world had any idea what we were talking about.
That's pretty awesome.
It brings it full circle.
Yes. Yes. And like I told you, I think I told you that the owner of the Red Onion is at Wright-Patterson.
Yes, that's amazing.
I found a picture of him. I have to send it to you.
Do they have a restaurant or anything?
He was working at a place in town, but he doesn't. I think he married an Air Force woman.
Gosh.
So I saw him at the commissary one day. I was like, oh man. So yeah, small world. But he didn't like the way that the Turkish restaurant in town was doing the food. They were trying to Americanize it a little bit. But I'll tell you, those are the best meals I've ever had off base, with the lamb chops and everything. So, I mean, a lot of things you don't experience, unless you're there. So I thought it was funny that the food that they served on base made everybody sick, but they made sure you didn't get sick off base.
Right.
So, They took care of you.
They just loved us, and
Yes.
I guess none of that's there now. But yeah, it was amazing to tell people. We would go out, maybe 4 or 6 of us would go to the Red Onion and eat like kings, and then
Yeah.
we would try to pay for it, and they'd be like, "Oh, it's $12, and we're like, "What? Here's a 20. Keep it." And they're like, "What do you know?" And it was so good and so fresh. The vegetables literally were picked that afternoon or a day or two before from the. And
Yeah, things are fresher everywhere else, but here, like Europe's the same way. For some reason. So let me ask you a couple more questions. So what's the goal for the car? I'm not talking about a finish date. What are you going to do with the car once you get it? Are you going to Sunday drive it or what?
My goal is that my wife drives it and she's sitting in a straight line someplace when somebody pulls up with their Z06, or I have to kind of reset my goal on an experience that happened recently. But my goal is that someone comes up and revs it and she basically just shows them. I mean, when you have a small block super motor in a car that weighs 2,400 pounds, mine is a straight thing. I want her, and she's been talking about that for years, how cool that will be. And, someone's like, "Hey, look at my Mustang," and just leaves you. I want it to be not a daily driver, but my personality of what I do for a business. I would like to be seen around town in it. I already decided the plates are I'm in the lending business, and I already bought the vanity plates, LNFISH, Lonefish. So I
love it.
Have that. I'll never sell it. I'll never get out of it what I want. The kids want to drive it. One's 18. She's not going to drive it. My son, who knows? I just would like to finish it. The buses took over everything, and I need to finish it out.
Right.
When I say I had to reset my expectations, I've told my children since they could understand me that when that car is done, they will experience something, the type of horsepower and torque they have no idea until my partner here at the company bought a Tesla. And we went out in that, and there's a whole new definition of power and torque.
Yeah.
It's just, to be real honest with you, Kevin, it's just defeating, because it's like, I'm never going to touch that. From 0 to 60 in 1.8 seconds in an automobile and it doesn't even make noise. There's nothing going to be like I don't have a big block, but my small block's going to sound like it. There's nothing like that. If you've been around a real, for the muscle car, to be around a real, one of the unique things about that CUDA was they had a unique muffler system where they built in resonators. So the mufflers were underneath the passengers that sat in that tiny little section that I can't believe people sit in. And then the mufflers went up over the drive shaft, and then they had a tunnel, and they put these things called resonators in there. And that's what gave it this really unique CUDA Challenger sound. And I have all that ready to install, so I can't wait. It's that where it's just like it's barely idling, and you can literally see the fumes come out of the separate exhaust, and they really had it down. They sold a lot of those cars. And I want to say this about it too. They're a very dangerous car because they're so light, and that concerns me about when I talk about my kids driving them. They're very light. There's no way to traction control is not really a possibility. New cars have all that, the way they hook up and they limited slip that can adjust that. When you go back and look at those pictures after our call, when all the doors are off of that car, and ask yourself, what keeps that car from folding in half when it impacts something? And so the CUDA and the Challenger really, the word wrapped around a pole, that car is what wrote the book on that. Because they're not even really a unit. The way that they're built, there's nothing in that center shell. There's no reinforcement. There's nothing. The doors there, but the doors didn't have any superstructure in them lengthwise. And so if you were to catch a pole or an object or a fence post, the car literally would fold around it like a paperclip. And that scares me. I mean, I'm not out driving like that anymore, but I used to do some pretty stupid stuff when I was 17.
Yeah.
Let's see if it does do 120 miles an hour and it didn't have speed rated tires. And certainly the roads in Northwest Ohio weren't meant for that. Let's see if we can get it airborne. Stuff like that. This is really dumb stuff. So,
yeah, that's with my car, it's like it's kind of interesting though, because this car is built like a tank. You know, the construction of it is pretty incredible. However, you know, it's one of the first unibody constructions in 1958, believe it or not.
okay.
So I mean, it's incredible how this thing is built and how long it's been. I mean, they're all over the place in Europe, not too many in the U.S., but yeah, it's a pretty solid car. But I can understand. I mean, it's not built for speed. It's not. You're going to hear everything you do. You know, you put the gas pedal down and on 4 in the tree, and that's what you're going to hear. So that's the old school, you know, engine and the old school, you know, transmission. But the clutch has no. The clutch is optional. You don't need to put your foot on it.
Right.
Automatic. I don't know why. What's the point?
Right. Yeah, I think my roommate in Germany had one of those. I'm gonna have to send him a picture of yours. When we were state, he bought one, an old Mercedes. It looks very similar. I'll have to ask him.
Yeah, there's like different versions of it, but I'll tell you what. Today, their parts are ridiculously expensive. So I just rebuild or redo whatever I have. I mean, $1,000 for like the air intake cover. So I just round it down and I painted it. It's like the stuff I have that I think is bad is better than what people are selling. So
right.
Everything. But your car is I mean, it's so cool. It's it's speed. It's speed and everybody loves the Cuda. The Cuda. I remember when I was growing up, seeing those around. And the older ones.
They just have a really, they were art. You said that earlier. It's an art. It's a piece of art.
Yes, it is.
Beautiful lines.
That's why I was surprised when I saw it on your Facebook page. I was like, wow, he's got a Cuda.
Yeah. You know, I had the same year I bought that, I bought a number matching 70 Cuda convertible.
Oh, wow.
I kept it for 10 years and I never worked on it. And I sold it to a guy in Detroit. And I found that one here in Franklin in a barn. No, it was in a car hauler, just sitting there on Craigslist or Facebook. No, it was Craigslist. We didn't have Facebook Marketplace yet.
Right. That Facebook Marketplace is great.
Yeah.
A lot of good stuff on there.
I all those years I couldn't find something. Then I found 2 of them within like 2. It was during the Great Recession in 2008, 2009. Everything was falling apart. And I happened to be doing really well right then, and just nabbed some stuff. But probably that car was a Grand Coupe convertible as well with the rally pack. So a rally pack on a Cuda or Challenger meant the 4 big gauges with the tack and everything. And they're very rare. Mm-hmm. But the top went up and down. It was a rust bucket too. It was just like this car. It would have been another 30 grand to just start on it. I'm glad it's gone. I'm glad somebody else is enjoying it.
Hey, my wife's you ask him. I can't ask that question. So go ahead.
So do you play a Cuda Matata in the car when you drive it?
No, but I used to have, so the original one that's funny. The original one had a digital Craig 8-track in it.
Oh, wow.
Man. And I bought the converter where you put the cassette tape in, it would go into it, and I would play a song by heart called Barracuda.
Oh no!
We would dun, 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 dun. We would play that. And we thought we were fun.
My kind of guy.
So look, for my car, I bought this portable Bluetooth speaker that I put in. You know, I use and I play 50s music.
Yeah.
So yeah, the best songs of 1958. So yeah, I like that. I love history. I love reliving things and restoring things back to the way they were. That's the kind of, I love it because, you know, you work on old airplanes, you did the same thing.
Yep.
A7s, we did that. Yep. Make them look brand new. You can make everything look brand new. It's just amazing, you know. that works. So I guess I'll let you get back home now.
Yeah, they're asking where I'm at, so I'll jump off.
So we're gonna say goodbye. You got anything you want to talk about or?
Yeah, I'd love to catch up with you another time and tell you about the bus business, because it is an absolutely amazing story. We can do that not on this format, but the story about that, and one of my friends that I befriended in the bus business now has over 100,000 followers because of some things we did with one of my buses, and is sought after all over the world to work on Detroit diesels. And several people in my sphere from this bus company I started have these YouTube channels that are doing phenomenal things and good things for people. I'd love to share that with you. Love to see you when you visit Nashville. You've always got a place to visit and stay. You and your wife would like to visit here.
Great. So that kind of parlays into marketing and things like that. And yeah, I think because there's a lot of like your CUDA, even your Barracuda, but the buses would be so unique. And something like that. Yeah, I would love to interview on that or talk about it. And anything else related to that. If you ever write a book about anything like your car or the buses or anything, I will publish that book for you.
Yeah, I'm very proud of you. I haven't read your book yet, and it's on my list of things to do. But I'm proud of the fact, just taking the initiative and doing it. And it's just that first step. Maybe you'll say, maybe you won't, but once you took that step and put that first word to paper, then it happens. It's just getting, I think for all of us in life, it's getting to that position. And once we make that commitment, it happens. And I've got some commitments like that I want to work on. I love telling stories.
Good.
I have not started my own YouTube channel, but I've enjoyed helping other people with theirs. But I'm going to call it a night, and I can't wait to catch back up with you. And I would just love to have a phone call like this and talk, or whether you record it or publish it or not, it's fine with me. But I love talking in this format to people, and it was really great to see your face. Feel like it was just yesterday that we were cutting up about something and going to lunch at Loma Linda's or doing the things we do.
Those are good times.
Yeah.
There are good times to come. So
good. Very good. All right, sir.
I appreciate it. Thanks for coming on, and we love having you and love hearing about your life, your military career, all kinds of things. Got to know you a little better, and for everybody, Lance is a great guy. As you can tell, he's multi-talented. I mean, he went from being a crypto guy to aircraft mechanic, to finance, to restoring a car. And you're very capable of what you're doing. You own a bus company, and you're very successful at what you do. And everybody in the Guard looked up to you. I'll just say that.
Thank you.
You're making it happen. So we're all proud of you.
Thank you. That really means a lot to me, Kevin. Thank you.
You're welcome.
We'll have you back on sometime soon.
Thanks.
My producer just spoke up here. So Lance, take care, and I'll catch you on the other side.
Yes, sir. Good night, sir.
Thank you.
Bye now.
Bye. All right. Remember, this is Brownie Fox from Dayton, White House, saying, if you have a story to tell, I have time to listen. So let's talk. You got any ideas for new shows? Hit me up. I'm all open for that. And I appreciate you guys watching. And that's the end of the show. Thanks, everyone. Good night.